Hello, today we're going to talk about a graphical representation called a histogram. So we're going to start by just defining what a histogram is. A histogram is a graphical representation that uses bars to represent the frequency of a set of data in successive numerical intervals of equal size. So I'm sure if you're like me, you're going, huh? What does that even mean? And you'd be right. That's a lot of pieces to one definition. So let's break down each piece of the definition and talk about what it means in relation to a histogram. The first part says it's a graphical representation that uses bars. That means we're going to be drawing a graph and that we're going to be drawing bars to show our data. The next part says that it's going to use the bars to represent the frequency of a set of data. So that means the height of each bar is going to tell us how many of that bar occurred. So this third bar here, if you look, it lines up with about 45. That means whatever's graphed here happened 45 times. Whatever's graphed here happened about 68 times. The next part of the definition is probably the most confusing. So let's break that one down a little deeper. It says you're going to represent the frequency of a set of data, but you're going to represent it in successive numerical intervals of equal size. What that means is along the bottom of your x-axis down here, all of those numbers are going to be numbers. First of all, it says numerical intervals. An interval is a range, so you're not listing every number separate, you're grouping them together. And they have to be successive. That means they have to come in order with no skips. So if you notice down here, even though I don't have anything in my 30 to 40 range, I couldn't just skip it. I had to include it. It also says that the intervals have to be equal size. So every single one of my groups down here are groups of 10, 70 to 80, 80 to 90, 90 to 100. I cannot have one group be a group of 5 numbers and another group be a group of 20 numbers. They all have to have the same equal size of group. So let's look a little bit deeper at how a histogram is similar and different to a bar graph. So both of them look very, very similar. They're both using rectangles to represent the information, and they're both reporting the frequency of whatever is graphed in that rectangle. What's different is how the x-axis looks. So in a bar graph over here, if you notice, the x-axis is actually categories. There's Spanish, Chinese, French, etc. Whereas the x-axis on the second one is a range of numbers, 60 to 65, 65 to 70, 70 to 75, etc. Also, if you notice over here, there's gaps between the bars, and that's because they're categories and we don't want those categories to get blended together. But in a histogram, there are no gaps between the bars because they're successive intervals. It means there's no break between one number and the next number. They come in order and there's no gaps in between. Why don't you take a moment to go back to your lesson and do a quick check-in?